This is Kennedy Launch Control, T-minus 1 hour, 21 minutes and counting. All aspects of the countdown still go for Apollo 15, still aiming toward our planned T0 and liftoff at 9:34 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The administrator of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, Dr. James Fletcher, has just arrived here in Firing Room 1, the control room for this launch. He is being briefed by the Deputy Administrator, Dr. George Lowe, and is being told that the countdown is still going excellently, as it has since it picked up late last evening. The spacecraft commander, Dave Scott, aboard the spacecraft with his two comrades at the 320-foot level at the pad. Scott now working on some command and guidance checks, working with spacecraft test conductor Skip Chauvin and the spacecraft checkout team. Here in the firing room, under the direction of Test Supervisor Jim Harrington and the launch vehicle test conductor Norm Carlson, the launch team making some final telemetry checks of the status of the tracking telemetry in the three stages and instrument unit of the Saturn V launch vehicle. Still counting, still go. Weather report excellent for a launch attempt. A beautiful morning for a flight to the moon. 1 hour, 19 minutes, 45 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control, T-minus 71 minutes and counting. 71 minutes and counting, all still proceeding very satisfactorily with the countdown for Apollo 15. Spacecraft Commander Dave Scott, who sits on the left-hand side of the spacecraft, still very busy on board, working with spacecraft test conductor Skip Chauvin as they make final checks of the guidance and stabilization control systems aboard the Apollo spacecraft. As a part of this test, Dave Scott actually will send commands to cause that big engine below them in the service module to swing or gimbal in response to commands from the guidance system. The service module propulsion system, which is capable of some 20,000, 500,000 pounds of thrust, is used for all the major maneuvers on the flight to and from the moon once the big Saturn V launch vehicle has done its job and placed it on the proper trajectory toward the moon. Here in Firing Room 1 are checks of the various telemetry systems and calibration of telemetry. The tracking information we'll receive from the vehicle is still continuing. We'll also be coming up shortly on some more checks of the tracking beacons on board. We have been alerted that the swing arm, the Apollo access arm at the 320-foot level, may come back about 10 minutes earlier in the count because the count has been going so well and we've been a little bit ahead on many of the procedures. The closeout crew, who have been aiding the astronauts at the 320-foot level, have completed their job and have now departed. That's our status. All is go. 79 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control, T-minus 61 minutes and counting. T-minus 61, the countdown still proceeding very satisfactorily. Now just a little more than an hour away from our planned liftoff here on the Apollo 15 mission. Astronaut Dave Scott, who will be making his third space flight, is still working with the spacecraft test conductor in the spacecraft cabin at the 320-foot level at the pad, working with spacecraft test conductor Skip Chauvin back at the control room. We have completed our final guidance alignment checks of the spacecraft systems, and we're now making some final checks of the entry monitoring system, the system that would help guide the spacecraft back in on a re-entry from a trip from the trip from the moon, and also, of course, if there was an emergency condition where the spacecraft had to come back in. Skip Chauvin has just advised the astronauts that the swing arm, which is now still attached to the spacecraft, probably will be coming back in about 7 minutes from this time. The swing arm is moved to a position about 6 feet away from the spacecraft so that if there was an emergency condition where the astronauts needed to egress the spacecraft in a hurry, that swing arm could be brought back in a matter of seconds so that the astronauts could get out. At the 5-minute mark in the countdown, the swing arm is retracted to its fully retracted position at the pad. Here in the Launch Control Center, our telemetry calibration checks are still in progress. We'll be making some checks of the Range Safety Command Destruct system aboard the vehicle, the system that would be used to destroy the vehicle after an abort sequence had occurred and the astronauts had escaped from the vehicle in trouble. That's our status. All is go. 59 minutes, 10 seconds, and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control. We're at T-minus 56 minutes and counting. All still going well with the countdown at this time. Coming up in just about 3 minutes, that Apollo access arm, the arm that the astronauts used to go across to board their spacecraft, will be retracted to a standby position. It's retracted 12 degrees or some 6 feet from the spacecraft. Once this does occur, we arm that launch escape system, the launch escape tower on top of the spacecraft, and from that point down in the countdown, if there was any critical emergency situation, an abort could take place right on the launch pad with the solid fuel motors in the launch escape tower, which generates some 155,000 pounds of thrust, pulling the spacecraft away from a launch vehicle that would be in trouble and an explosion imminent. This is one of the number of emergency conditions that we do plan for and do have systems to handle here in the last hour or so of the countdown. All aspects of the count still going well. We're at 54 minutes, 45 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control. The swing arm is now moving back from the spacecraft on command right at the 53-minute mark. It'll be moved some 6 feet away from the spacecraft and remain in that standby condition for contingency purposes through the remainder of the countdown until at 5 minutes it is fully retracted. The astronauts, of course, were alerted that this event would occur because they do feel a slight jolt as the swing arm and the white room attached to its tip is pulled away. The astronauts still continuing their final checks aboard the spacecraft, and the crew here in firing room 1 at the Launch Control Center here at Complex 39 still monitoring the status of the propellants on board the vehicle. We loaded more than 750,000 gallons of liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen aboard the Saturn V this morning from the time the countdown picked up late last evening. A power transfer test, one of our key tests over the last hour or so in the countdown, has been successfully accomplished here in the firing room. We have switched from external power to the internal batteries on board the 3 stages and instrument unit of the Saturn V to assure that they are operating properly. To conserve those batteries on board, we've now returned to external power. We will finally switch internal with the rocket at the 50-second mark in the count. The countdown has been going very well. In fact, we're about 10 minutes ahead on events both concerned with the spacecraft and the launch vehicle. We're now 51 minutes, 25 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control, T-minus 46 minutes and counting. T-minus 46 minutes and counting. We are proceeding satisfactorily, aiming toward our planned liftoff here for Apollo 15. The Apollo 15 astronaut crew standing by in the spacecraft at this time. They'll have quite a bit more work before we reach our T0, but they're standing by at this point. They've completed their guidance and alignment checks and are waiting as certain key launch vehicle checks are taking place at this time. We have just completed a check of the Digital Range Safety Command Destruct System. These are the destruct packages aboard the 3 stages of the Saturn V that would be activated if the vehicle was flying off course and was a danger to personnel below. Of course, before the destruct system would be activated, the abort sequence would take place and the astronaut crew and their spacecraft would be separated from the launch vehicle. Our weather is go and all aspects of the countdown go. 44 minutes, 57 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control at T-minus 40 minutes, 54 seconds and counting. Still proceeding very well at this time, aiming toward our planned T0 at 9:34 a.m. The astronauts will be busy again shortly in the spacecraft, particularly Command Module pilot Al Worden as he proceeds to go through the sequence of pressurizing the reaction control system of the spacecraft. This is primarily concerned with those 4 quadrants of 100-pound thrust rockets on the side of the service module. We pressurized that system before launch, and Al Worden reads off the status of the overall system so that spacecraft test conductor Skip Chauvin and the crew back in the spacecraft control center can determine that that system is go for launch. Of course, the reaction control system used extensively on the flight to and from the moon for small refinements on trajectory. Here in firing room 1, we'll go for the final portion of the count. We have a clearance from the range to launch, and our countdown is continuing. The countdown has been going excellently since it picked up at 11:34 p.m. last evening following a 9-hour, 34-minute built-in hold. Since that time, a major portion of the count was devoted to the propellant loading of the Saturn V launch vehicle, bringing aboard liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, the so-called cryogenic propellant, aboard the 3 stages of the vehicle. We loaded more than 750,000 gallons of the oxygen and hydrogen on board, and at liftoff, we expect to have a vehicle weighing close to 6.5 million pounds on the launch pad. The Saturn V space vehicle stands some 363 feet. As far as the Apollo 15 crew is concerned, the crew was awakened by their boss, Donald K. Slayton, as planned in the countdown at 4:19 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. They were given a brief physical exam by Dr. Jack Teagan a short time later, and he declared them in excellent physical condition and very well rested. The crew then sat down to breakfast with a number of the astronaut members of the backup team and support team who have worked so hard with them in preparation for the mission, and then were ready to proceed to the suit laboratory to don their pressure suits and go through final checks prior to being ready to go to the launch pad. Once again, as planned in the countdown, they departed the crew quarters at 6:28 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, arrived at the pad about 18 minutes later, and then went on board the spacecraft at about the 2.5-hour mark in the count. Since that time, Scott, Worden, and Irwin have been performing various checks, working with the spacecraft control team, and all these checks have gone well. Our status is excellent at this time. The weather forecast is certainly a go for launch with clear skies or clear to scattered skies. The surface winds about 10 miles per hour from the south, and the weather situation on the worldwide track as far as contingency purposes all go. That's our status, T-minus 37 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control, T-minus 31 minutes and counting. T-minus 31. Our mission with Apollo 15 still go. This is the fourth flight intended for a lunar landing, and all is going well. We're still aiming toward our plan T0 at 9:34 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, when, if all goes well, those 5 big engines in the first stage of the Saturn V will ignite, generating more than 7.7 million pounds of thrust to start us on the way on a long trip to the moon. 30 minutes, 25 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control, T-minus 26 minutes and counting. We're still proceeding very satisfactorily here in the final minutes of the countdown, all still going well. The busy activity right now, astronaut Al Worden giving final verification of the status of the propellant system on board the Apollo spacecraft. He's working with spacecraft test conductor Skip Chauvin, giving the key readings on the various systems, temperatures, and pressures to assure that that reaction control system is go for the launch. It will have a lot of work to do during the mission, and we want to make sure that it is precisely right before we're ready to commit to launch. Skip Chauvin now informs the astronauts that we're still about 10 minutes ahead in the countdown, and Dave Scott replies back with a rather quick roger. The countdown's still going. Launch vehicle status is go. 25 minutes, 2 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control, T-minus 20 minutes, 56 seconds and counting. All aspects of the count are still go, still aiming toward our plan T0 at the appointed time of 9:34 a.m. Astronaut Al Worden, the command module pilot in the middle seat, has completed his checks of the pressurization system for the reaction controls of the Apollo spacecraft, and all is still going well. Here in the Launch Control Center, the crew has started a sequence to chill down the upper 2 stages of the Saturn V because of the extremely low temperatures of the liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen involved in the propellant system, and it is necessary to condition the engine chambers in both the second and third stages so that they will be at a lower temperature when the propellants are introduced at ignition time during the powered phase of the flight. We'll have more than 11 minutes of powered flight in the first phase of the mission before the spacecraft, the Apollo spacecraft, is placed into a parking orbit some 90 nautical miles high, still attached to the third stage. A second burn of that third stage of the Saturn V will place the spacecraft on its proper translunar trajectory. Our status, 19 minutes, 40 seconds and counting. All aspects still go. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control. 16-minute mark has just been passed. We're at 15 minutes, 53 seconds and counting. The astronaut crew standing by for some important functions that will be coming up in a minute or so as the Apollo spacecraft goes on full internal power on the fuel cells on board. Up to this time in the countdown, an external power source also has been applied to conserve those fuel cells. The external power source is removed. The astronauts will take a look at the status of their power system on board and report it back to the spacecraft control center. Both the astronauts also will arm their hand controllers on board the spacecraft, and we will be ready to proceed to also place the emergency detection system on its automatic mode. Our countdown is still proceeding very satisfactorily as we come up on the 15-minute mark. The flight azimuth is the same. About 5 minutes ago, there was an update given to the spacecraft computer. No changes were required because our countdown is right on time. 14 minutes, 53 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control, T-minus 10 minutes, 55 seconds and counting. Countdown still running smoothly as astronaut Dave Scott on board the spacecraft checks out a key abort circuit. This is a special communication system with only about 3 or 4 people on it. These are the people who could recommend an abort to the spacecraft commander if required. These people include the launch operations manager, Paul Donnelly, the spacecraft communicator here in the control center, astronaut Vance Brand, spacecraft test conductor Skip Chauvin, and Houston flight director Jerry Griffin. We've checked out this special communication system, and Dave Scott confirms that all is well. The countdown proceeding. Jim Irwin now reading out some checks on the status of the fuel cells as we continue to go. We'll go on an automatic sequence here in the countdown, starting at the 3-minute, 7-second mark in the count. From that time down, we will be automatic with the countdown driven by the computer. This will wind up with ignition of those 5 engines in the first stage at the 8.9-second mark in the countdown. The engines will build up to their full thrust. The computer will make a determination that we have 90% thrust in all 5 engines, and that will be the signal for commit or to release the vehicle. Our countdown is still proceeding, 9 minutes, 33 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control, T-minus 5 minutes, 55 seconds and counting. We're still go. We're about to come up with some status checks now to determine the final status. In the meantime, the Lunar Module test conductor, Fritz Weideck, has come in over the circuit and informed the spacecraft commander, Dave Scott, that Lunar Module Falcon and the rover are go. Dave Scott thanked him for this and then also received a report from spacecraft test conductor Skip Chauvin that the command ship, which will have the call sign Endeavour, also is go. We've just completed our status reports, and the launch operations manager, Paul Donnelly, the launch director, Walt Kaprian, and the mission director, Chet Lee, all have given their goes. We're standing by for the swing arm to retract to its full fallback position. It's moving now as we approach the 5-minute mark in the count. Coming up on the 5-minute mark. Mark, T-minus 5 minutes and counting. We're go on Apollo 15. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This is Kennedy Launch Control. We've just passed the 3-minute, 30-second mark in the count. The terminal sequencer has been armed, and we are go. Launch Operations Manager Paul Donnelly just wished the crew good luck and Godspeed and received an expression of thanks from all 3 crew members. We'll be coming up shortly on the automatic sequence. 3 minutes, 10 seconds. Firing command enable. Firing command on. We have the firing command. We're now on the automatic sequence. And the tanks in the 3 stages of the Saturn V that contain those propellants will begin to pressurize. The countdown is still proceeding, and we're at now 2 minutes, 50 seconds and counting. We understand there's an estimate that there are more than 1 million people in the area here to view the launch. The traffic has been heavy since 2 o'clock this morning. The beaches are packed and the roads are packed. 2 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. We're monitoring our status board here in firing room 1. Our ready lights are on, concerned with spacecraft, emergency detection system, instrument unit. Our preparations are complete, and the automatic sequence is continuing. 2 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. We now have 2nd stage liquid oxygen and 3rd stage liquid oxygen supplies pressurized as the countdown continues. Coming up on the 2-minute mark, we'll be standing by for the cue ball cover to be retracted shortly atop the Saturn V vehicle. Mark, T-minutes, 2 minutes, T-minus 2 minutes and counting, still going well. Propellant stable on board the vehicle. The crew here in the firing room monitoring more than 300 red line values, watching temperatures and pressures to ensure they do not go above nominal. In the case that it did, any one of these key people could call in to hold the countdown. 1 minute, 36 seconds and counting, still going well. The pressurization sequence is still continuing in the vehicle. We're now 90 seconds away from liftoff, all still going well. We'll go on internal power with the vehicle at the 50-second mark in the count. We now get indications from our status board that all is still going well, and the third stage is now completely pressurized. Coming up shortly on the 1 minute mark, we're now 70 seconds and counting. Second stage tanks are pressurized as our countdown continues. Mark, T-minus 60 seconds and counting on Apollo 15. The astronauts are go, launch vehicle and spacecraft components all go as our countdown proceeds. Now 50 seconds, we have the power transfer. The vehicle now on the battery power in the vehicle, and all is still going well. Lunar Module pilot Jim Irwin making some final checks, now passing the 40-second mark. Spacecraft Commander Dave Scott now has made his final check. That is aligning the guidance system. 30 seconds and counting. The guidance system will go internal at the 17-second mark. Now 25 seconds. We have complete clearance to launch. We are go. 20. 15 seconds. Guidance internal. 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence start. Engines armed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All engines running. Launch commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff at 9:34 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The tower is clear.
And we have a roll program.
Roger. You have good thrust on all 5 engines.
Thanks, Gordo. Roll's complete.
Roger.
And we have a pitch program.
Roger, pitch. Stand by for mode 1 Bravo. Mark 1 Bravo.
Roger, 1 Bravo.
Booster Systems engineer reports to flight director that S1C stage looking good.
Houston, everything looks perfect down here.
Okay, looks smooth up here, Gordo.
Going through maximum dynamic pressure at this time. Nine miles downrange, 14.5 miles height.
Charlie. Mark 1 Charlie now.
Roger, 1 Charlie.
Each of the S1Cs.
Roger.
Each of the 5 S1C engines gulping 3 tons of fuel per second.
Inboard.
Roger, inboard.
Flight Dynamics reports go for staging.
Good stage.
Roger. Houston, you have good thrust on the S2. All 5 are good.
Okay.
.73 miles downrange, 47.9 altitude.
7.7.
Roger.
Fire jet.
Roger, we confirm the skirt SEP. You're mode 2.
Roger, mode 2. Guidance initiated.
Roger.
Coming up on 10,000 feet per second mark, downrange 131, altitude 66.
15 Houston at 4, the guidance has converged. The CMC is go, everything looks good.
Okay, Gordon, looks good up here.
Now at 35% of the velocity needed to orbit. Downrange 190 miles, altitude 79.
Houston, 5 minutes. Everything looks nominal. Your go.
Okay, Gordon, thank you. Looks good up here.
40% of velocity needed.
Roger.
Downrange 271, altitude 88. Predicting nominal shutdown on the S2 stage.
Houston, times are nominal. Level sense arm will be 8 plus 3, 4, and S2 cutoff at 9er plus 0, 9er. Over.
Roger, 8 plus 3, 4, and 9 plus 0, 9.
And stand by for S4B to COI. Mark, you have S4B to COI now.
Roger, S4B to COI.
380 miles, downrange, altitude 94.5. Velocity 15,000 feet per second.
Stand by for S4B to orbit capability. Mark, you have it now.
Roger, S4B to orbit.
Downrange 479, altitude 96. Now approaching 65% of velocity needed for orbit. Velocity now 16,700 feet per second. Official time of liftoff 34 minutes 00 seconds .79.
Inboard.
Roger, inboard.
Flight.
Downrange 660 miles, altitude 95 miles. 78% velocity required for orbit.
15 Houston. 15 Houston. Go ahead. Say again, 15.
Houston 15, we didn't call. You got something?
You've had PU shift and the thrust looks good.
Okay.
You've had level sense arm now.
Roger.
About 6 seconds to staging.
Stand by for mode 4 capability. Mark, you have mode 4 now.
Roger, in a good stage.
Roger.
Booster reports thrust okay on the S4B stage.
You have good thrust on the S4B.
Roger.
.960 miles downrange, 94.7 altitude, velocity 23,230.
Houston, everything's looking perfect. Predicted cutoff time 11 plus 37. Over.
Roger, 11 plus 37.
.1281 miles downrange, 93.4 altitude, 97% of velocity, 98% of velocity required, 25,143 feet per second.
Okay, cutoff, 11 plus 34.
Roger.
Booster confirms the S4B has shut down.
Okay, Houston, Gimbal motors are off, and the S4B oxidizer is 4-0, and the fuel is about 3-1.
Roger, 4-0 and 3-1.
Okay, Gordo, we got ourselves in a 93.7 by 88.9. Shut down on a VI of plus 25595. H dot plus 00008. Altitude plus 00932.
Roger, out, copy. Houston, IU shows you in a 92.5 by 91.5. Radar confirms that, and the booster is safe.
Okay, Gordo, good job. That was a very smooth ride all the way.
Roger. Houston, the booster is configured for orbit, over.
Roger.
15, Houston, have your Z torquing angle.
Okay, go ahead.
Minus decimal 1 degrees, 1/10 of a degree, minus.
All right, minus 0.1.
That's correct.
We've had loss of signal through Bermuda. About a minute out of Canary Islands. To recap a moment, the measured orbital, here's a call now to the crew.
Houston, 15.
Roger, you're loud and clear.
Okay, the S4B tank pressure is about 41 on the oxidizer and about 21 on the fuel.
Roger, 41 and 21.
Apollo 15 in a 92.5 by 91.5 nautical mile Earth orbit, 1 mile out of perfectly circular. Communications through the Canary Island tracking station for about 4 minutes and 11 seconds total pass time. following up on loss of signal through Canaries.
Houston, about 35 seconds to LOS, and we have nothing further for you. We'll see you at Carnarvon as shown in the checklist at 5-2. Over.
Okay, Carnarvon at 5-2.
Flight Dynamics officer reports that the data coming from the Canary Islands tracking station confirms the initial measurements of the Earth parking orbit, and we're expecting to acquire Apollo 15 again over the Carnarvon, Australia tracking station at 52 minutes ground elapsed time, about 30 minutes from now. And at 22 minutes 13 seconds ground elapsed time, this is Apollo control. This is Apollo control, 50 minutes, 34 seconds ground elapsed time on the mission of Apollo 15. Now approaching the Carnarvon, Australia tracking station. We're about a 6.5 minute pass over that station. Halfway through the first Earth parking orbit. Next time they pass over Carnarvon or over the Australian subcontinent, the crew of Apollo 15 will be preparing for the Translunar injection maneuver, in which the spacecraft in S4B stage will break out of Earth parking orbit and begin the 3-day journey to the Moon. Actually, the targeting will be toward where the Moon will be 3 days from now. Still about 30 seconds away from predicted time of acquisition by the antenna at Carnarvon. We've had acquisition of signal. Let's stand by.
Apollo 15, Houston, through Carnarvon. Over.
All right, Houston 15, you're loud and clear.
You're loud and clear also.
Okay, the insertion checks are coming along very nicely. We're down through 21 of the checklist, and the cameras are out, and Al's completed his alignment.
Roger.
Hey, I only got one comment Jim's got for you.
Go ahead.
Houston 15, on the H2 purge, fuel cell 2, I cannot confirm since I have no readout of a flow indication or a caution and warning associated with that flow.
Roger.
And if you'd like, I could do it any time and perhaps you could confirm it. Houston 15.
This is Houston. We're unable to help you on confirming that purge down here, Jim.
Okay, understand.
Gordos, I've got some numbers on the P-52 for you.
Okay, ready, copy.
Okay, use stars 33 and 41. Down 05 was plus 00001. And the torquing angles were minus 00019, plus 00021, minus 00061. And they were torqued out
out at 50 minutes.
Roger, copied. On the torquing angles, a minus 3019er, a plus 3021, and a minus 3061. Over.
That's affirmed.
Thank you.
This is Apollo Control. Cabin pressure aboard Apollo 15 holding at 5.7 pounds per square inch. Heart rates for Scott, Worden, and Irwin respectively are 70, 83, and 88.
Houston, one other comment. Apparently sometime during launch, the RCS-B secondary propellant isolation valve closed, and we recycled it, got a great talk back.
Roger, Dave. Apollo 15, Houston, about 15 seconds to LOS, estimating United States at 1:30 GET.
Roger, 130.
And we've had loss of signal through the Carnarvon, Australia tracking station. We're standing by now for the post-launch press conference at Press Site 39 at Kennedy Space Center. And at 59 hours, 22 minutes ground elapsed time, this is Apollo Control. This is Apollo Control. We join the conversation in progress with Apollo 15 through Goldstone.
Through 27 on the checklist. The docking probe is out. Looks good. And standing by for a sequence arm and a logic check when you're ready.
Roger, we can do that now. Go ahead.
Okay, logic 1 on now, logic 2 on now.
Logics are good. You go for power on.
Okay, and we had one other little one. At about an hour, we noticed that the primary and secondary propellant isolation valves on quad delta were barber pole. We cycled the switch, and they're now gray, and the RCS check's okay.
Roger. I have a TLI plus 90 and liftoff plus 8 aboard pads when you're ready.
Could you stand by one, please, Gordon?
Okay.
Getting a little UV here. Okay, Gordo, I'm ready for the TLI pad.
Okay, this is the TLI plus 90 aboard pad, Jim.
Okay.
TLI plus 90, SPS/GNN. Noun 47 is 66938. Minus 052. Plus 190. GT for ignition is 004. 19. 5699. Noun 81 minus 04254 plus 401 plus 49217. Attitude 180 166 002. HA is NA. HP plus 00210. 49401. 634. 49208. Sexton star is 40. 0795. 359. Boresight star NA. Noun 61 plus 1604 minus 03000 10990 34492. GET for 05G 017 4358. GDC aligned stars are Deneb and Vega. 112 128 356. No LH. Go ahead. 15 Houston. Apollo 15 Houston, over. Apollo 15 Houston, we're not reading you, over.
Okay, Houston, there's a breakup in a VHF, and Jim lost some of the first part of the transmission. Could you go through it again?
Okay, just what do you need?
Yeah, 947 through roll, pitch, and yaw.
Okay, Jim, 947 is 66938 minus 052 plus 190. 933 004 19 5699. 981 minus 04254 plus 00001 minus 49217. Correction on Delta VZ is a plus 49217. Roll, pitch, and yaw are 180 166 002. Go ahead.
Okay, read back for TLI plus 90, SPS GNN 66938 minus 052 plus 190 004 195699 minus 04254 plus 00001 plus 49217 180 166 002 NA plus 00210 49401 634 49208 40 0795 359 NA plus 1604 minus 03000 10990 34492 0174 Denham Vega 112 128 356 and no LH.
Okay, Jim, your readback's correct. Liftoff plus 8 pad is 00800 6076 minus 175 02706. Go ahead.
Roger, 00800 6076 minus 175 and 02706.
Roger, and I have the TLI pad when you're ready for that one.
Go ahead, I'm ready on for the TLI pad.
Okay, time base 6 predict is 24023. Attitude for TLI 180 045 001. Burn time 555. 104011. 35599. Step attitude 359er 077 320. Protection attitude 301 257 040. R2 align 0450 0380. Ordeal start 5645. Yaw 001. Ejection time 41600. Go ahead.
Roger, TLI read back. 24023 180 045 001 555 104011 35599 359 077 320 301 257 040 0450 5645 001 and extraction at 41600.
Okay, a little static on two readbacks. Readback yaw for extraction and R2 align, please.
Roger, 040 and 0450.
Okay, readback's correct, Jim. Uh, 15 Houston, we have a question regarding the primary and secondary isolation valve. Over.
Go ahead.
We're wondering if you happened to just notice them barber pole at 1 hour, or did you notice them close at 1 hour? Over.
No, we just noticed that they were closed at an hour. Apparently in the shuffle here, somebody probably bumped the one switch, which would do it.
Roger, you can't tie them to any other action or event there then, is that right?
Negative.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Houston, IU uptel to block. We have put in a second IU nav vector based on stateside data.
Tell to block.
Houston, we'd like Pooh and accept.
To an accept, you've got it.
15 Houston, are you up till the block? You have a new state vector now?
Roger. CM up till going to block.
Roger, my mistake. Also have a short update for your TLI checklist ordeal angles because of a slight performance difference in the S4B. Over.
Okay, go ahead, Gordo.
Okay, on the launch checklist page L2-30, bottom of the page, tell me when you have it.
Go ahead, Gordo.
At 56 minutes, flew FDAI number 1 to pitch equals 17 degrees rather than 16. And at the top of the next page, ensure FDAI number 1 pitch equals 14 degrees rather than 13. Over.
Roger, copied 17 degrees instead of 16. And 14 instead of the 13.
Okay, and then on the next page, 2-32, at 59:55, change 7 degrees to 8 degrees. Ensure FDAI number 1 pitch equal 8 degrees.
Copy 8 degrees.
One more on the cue card for TLI, down slightly below the middle. The long cue card that the CDR uses at 54 minutes. The 24 degrees should be changed to 25 degrees. Ordeal 300 lunar, 25 degrees.
Okay, we've got that, 25 degrees.
And then there'll be a 1 degree difference on the rest of the ordeal numbers.
Okay, looks like they all fit.
That's it. Apollo 15 Houston, we're about to LOS. Nothing further. We'll see you at Carnarvon at 2:25 GET.
Roger, 220.
This is Apollo Control. Apparently we have had loss of signal through the Vanguard tracking ship in mid-Atlantic. During that pass over the United States, the numbers for the upcoming translunar injection maneuver were passed up to the crew. This maneuver slightly over an hour from now, planned at 2 hours 50 minutes ground elapsed time. The burn lasting 5 minutes 55 seconds with the S4B third stage. We'll place the spacecraft into trajectory toward the moon. We'll increase the velocity by some 10,414 feet per second. Measurement of the Apollo 15 Earth orbit as it passed over the Texas tracking station, the displays here in Mission Control showed the present orbit at 96.5 by 93.8. During the launch phase, the heart rates of the crew of Apollo 15 were 110 for Scott, 104 for Worden, and 115 for Irwin. We'll be communicating with the crew of Apollo 15 through the Carnarvon station at ground elapsed time of 2 hours 24 minutes and some odd seconds, and almost continuous communications through Araya, or Apollo Range Instrumented Aircraft, between Carnarvon and Hawaii tracking station. The TLI burn begins just about the commencement of the pass over Hawaii, and at 1 hour 51 minutes ground elapsed time. This is Apollo Control. This is Apollo Control, 2 hours 24 minutes ground elapsed time. We've just had acquisition through the Carnarvon station, and Gordon Fullerton giving him a call at this time.
Bye-bye.
Air 5 by also.
Okay. Houston 15, we're down to the middle of the TLI prep, and everything's in order.
Roger.
Houston 15.
We're showing the manual attitude switches in rate and impulse, and we recommend rate command.
Roger, rate command. And the pyros are on.
Roger.
Flight Director Jerry Griffin preparing to poll his flight controllers here in the mission control room for a go, no-go, which shows in the flight plan to be passed up through one of the aircraft in the mid-Pacific. However, it looks like the go, no-go signal will be voiced up to the crew just prior to the loss of signal here at Carnarvon. 22 minutes. Mark, 22 minutes to ignition for translunar injection.
Apollo 15, Houston.
Houston 15.
You are go for TLI.
Roger, go for TLI. And the S4B oxidizer looks like about 36, and the fuel looks like about 19.
Roger.
We've had loss of signal at Carnarvon. However, we will leave the circuit up live for the relays through the aircraft in mid-Pacific, relay through the Guam station, for any continuing conversation with the crew of Apollo 15. 17 minutes, 35 seconds to ignition for translunar injection. The S4B with the Apollo 15 spacecraft now weigh around 103,000 pounds, or as you were, 309,630 pounds. After the burn is complete, the spacecraft will have shrunk to 103,000 pounds approximately. After translunar injection burn, velocity will rise from the present 25,620 feet per second to 35,655 feet per second, an increase of slightly over 10,000 feet per second. About 20 minutes after burn cutoff, the S4B will maneuver to the separation attitude, and at 3 hours 20 minutes ground elapsed time, the Apollo 15 spacecraft will separate and do a turnaround maneuver and prepare to dock with the Lunar Module, which is housed in the spacecraft limb adapter atop the S4B stage. The 4 panels will shed away. The spacecraft, after docking with the Lunar Module, is ejected from the S4B stage. The Lunar Module landing gear struts are attached at the knee joints to fittings inside the spacecraft Lunar Module, or SLA as it's called in acronym. Springs eject the spacecraft at slightly over 1 foot per second. We're still about 2 minutes away from acquisition by the first of 2 Orion aircraft, or Apollo Range Instrumented Aircraft. From then on, we should have fairly continuous coverage until Hawaii, and the translunar injection burn, which is now some 14 minutes 6 seconds away from this point, will begin just at the start of the Hawaii pass, and from then on until going behind the moon some 3 days from now, we'll have continuous coverage, continuous contact with Apollo 15. We've had acquisition of signal with the first Orion aircraft. During the docking, separation and docking maneuver, we should have a live color television picture from the command module Westinghouse television camera.
Apollo 15, this is Houston through Orion, over. Apollo 15, this is Houston through Orion, over.
Roger, Houston, 15, you're about 1 by 1 through Orion.
Roger, you're about 3 by, clear enough to understand.
All right, so we got somebody else on the loop with us too.
Coming up on 10 minutes to TLI ignition. Mark, 10 minutes.
S2 subflight.
Roger, subflight.
Houston, looks like we have a slow refresh time. We're to about 22, 23 on the fuel pressure here.
Roger, Dave, you're just barely readable. Understand you're getting a normal refresh, so let me put that here.
Okay, normal refresh.
Slot boards here in Mission Control Center on the center screen are being set up now to monitor the translunar injection burn. Some 5 minutes, 43 seconds away from ignition. Should be in about a minute and a half, acquired by the second Orion spacecraft, or aircraft in mid-Pacific. Booster reports that the tanks in the S4B stage have been pressurized.
Apollo 15, Houston through Orion number 2, over. 15 Houston, you're way down in the static, but I can't hear you transmit, over.
Okay, 164 for the keel.
This is Apollo Control. There was some doubt in the booster engineer's mind that the engine bell of the S4B J2 engine had been properly chilled down as from the data that he got through the Orion 1 aircraft. However, his new data coming in through Orion 2 has confirmed that the chill down procedure prior to start has been accomplished as scheduled. Some 2 minutes 15 seconds away from TLI ignition. Continuing to stand by as we approach acquisition at Hawaii, and some 2 minutes from now, still standing by through the Orion 2 aircraft. Communications through Orion 2 have been somewhat scratchy, almost unintelligible from the spacecraft.
Roger, average G.
Upline.
Roger, supply.
Looking at ignition time of 2 hours 50 minutes 1 second ground elapsed time. Cut off at 2 hours 55 minutes 54 seconds. Total spacecraft velocity at cutoff should be 35,608.7 feet per second. Coming up on 20 seconds, mark 20 seconds to TLI ignition.
You have ignition?
Roger, ignition. Houston, we're showing good thrust.
Velocity building up. Now 26,270. 26,347 feet per second. Resulting apogee building up now 679 miles, 706, flicking over very rapidly.
KS4B pressure is 40 and 30, and we had a little surge at about 1 minute.
Roger, that was PU shift, and that looks, the thrust looks good.
Okay.
Velocity continuing to build, 26,700 feet per second. Resulting apogee, 1,661. Coming up on 30,000.
We're about halfway through. Pressures are steady at 40 and 30, and Ordeal is tracking right on zero.
Roger, 15 at 3 minutes. It looks completely nominal to us.
Roger.
Coming up on 30,000 feet per second. Mark, 30,000 feet per second. Resulting apogee, 4,685 nautical miles.
Okay, Houston, we have about a minute to go. We're tracking 39 and 30 on the pressures, and ordeal's about 0.
15 Houston, roger. Looks good here. Uh, 15 Houston, we're estimating cutoff about 4 seconds earlier than the pad time.
Roger, understand. 5 plus 5, 1.
That's affirmative.
Velocity rapidly approaching TLI cutoff speed.
Okay, shut down. 5 plus 5, 1.
Roger.
The tank pressure is about 82 coming down the oxidizer and about 28 coming down the fuel.
Roger.
Cutoff velocity 35,522 feet per second, resulting apogee from that maneuver 290,682 nautical miles.
15 Houston, we're getting a lot of static for some reason. Say again, please.
Roger, Gordo. I've got the cutoff ahead. We're ready to go.
Go ahead.
Okay, we cut off on the VI of 35614. Deep was plus 02. 5. Delta V 4.1. And altitude was 167.4.
15 Houston, most of your readback is blocked by static. Let's wait a little while and we'll try it again.
Okay, Gordo. And Houston, we have the S4B in orbit.
Roger. You're loud and clear now.
Okay. Okay, Houston, I've got the data if you want to copy.
Okay, sounds good now. Go ahead again.
Okay, Diskey was 3559er. VG plus 145. And the Delta VC minus 14.9. TFC plus 0.02. And for your information, the H dot was 4353 and the H was 167.4 cutoff.
Roger. Say again what that figure plus 02 was.
Yeah, TFC.
Roger. Okay, copied all that. And for your information, the maneuver to the TD&E attitude should start about 1 second earlier than the flight plan. 3:10:53.
Roger, 3:10:53.
being.
This is Apollo Control. Tracking now showing the spacecraft at 1,383 nautical miles out, directly over the Corpus Christi, Texas tracking station, but beginning the tail stand and loop backward to the west as the Earth rotates beneath the trajectory of the spacecraft. Velocity dropped off somewhat from the initial cutoff velocity of 35,000 and some odd feet per second, now down to 30,436 feet per second. Estimated time of closest approach to the moon, now 78 hours 34 minutes ground elapsed time. Continuing to stand by and monitor the preparations for the maneuver to separation attitude, the actual separation of the command service module from the spacecraft limb adapter, and docking with the lunar module, and finally the ejection of the Apollo 15 spacecraft from the S-4B stage, which will have done its job quite well, apparently, in what is shaping up thus far to be a completely nominal mission. This is Apollo Control at 3 hours, 8 minutes, 37 seconds, ground elapsed time, standing by live on air ground. Cabin pressure aboard Apollo 15 now 5.5 pounds per square inch. Heart rates currently for Scott, Worden, and Irwin respectively at 65, 69, and 69. Flight Director Jerry Griffin polling the flight controllers in the room for a go for transposition, docking, and extraction. Heard no goes so far. He's telling Capcom to tell him it's go.
Apollo 15, Houston.
Houston 15.
Everything looks good here. Your go for transposition and docking.
Roger, go for transposition and docking.
This is Apollo Control. Apollo 15 now 3,654 nautical miles out from Earth. Velocity now 25,178 feet per second. Total weight, including the spent S4B stage, 144,157 pounds. Continuing to monitor the air ground as the crew of Apollo 15 prepares to turn around and move the lunar module out of its garage. 3 hours, 21 minutes up and live on air ground. This is Apollo Control.
Okay, Houston 15, 30 seconds.
Roger.
Okay, Houston, we got a good set.
Roger.
And prime propellant B secondary and Delta prime and secondary wind bar propel, and they're both gray now, reset.
Roger. Houston, would you give us Omni Bravo?
Omni Bravo. Okay, Houston, looks like you've got a good limb in there, and we're rolling now, and the opening rates are stopped, and you should have a TV.
Roger. I haven't got the picture up here yet. Stand by and I'll give you a check on that.
Okay.
Houston.
Go, Houston.
Goldstone's receiving the carrier, but we're not getting any signal on the carrier for the TV, are we?
Okay, we've got a good picture on the monitor up here.
Starting to get a black and white picture here in mission control. Take a little while to get it through the converter.
Houston, we're getting the picture now, and the LEM is coming in the lower right-hand corner of our field of view.
Okay. Okay, Houston, looks like we've got a good high gain antenna. Do you want us to give you the high gain or stay on the Omni?
Stand by. We'll take the high gain, Dave.
Roger, going high gain. Okay, Houston, we're in auto and medium. Looks like we got a good lock.
Roger, and we're getting a very good picture here. It's over on the right-hand side of the field of view. Houston, request wide beam width, please.
Wide beam.
Houston, the centering on the picture is good now, and we're getting an excellent quality picture.
Very good. We're almost there. capture.
Roger.
We're retracting.
Roger.
Hard dock, Houston.
Roger.
Houston 15.
Go ahead.
Okay, that all went fairly nominally, and the only different thing we've noticed is the SPS thrust line on the EMS is now on, and we don't know when it came on, somewhere in the processor.
As you understand, the SPS thrust light is on.
And all the switches are off.
Apollo 15, Houston.
Go ahead. Houston 15.
Uh, 15, Houston, we'd like you to pull both SBS pilot valve circuit breakers on panel 8.
Okay, that's being done. They're both open.
Roger.
This is Apollo Control. Apollo 15 now 7,460 nautical miles out from Earth. Velocity continuing to decrease, now 20,197 feet per second. Fairly quiet crew, this mission. On the off chance they will talk some more, we'll leave the circuit up. At 3 hours 43 minutes ground elapsed time, this is Apollo Control. crew of Apollo 15 presently pressurizing the lunar module. This is Apollo Control. Spacecraft Systems engineers here in Mission Control Center are troubleshooting unusual valve position indication on telemetry and in the spacecraft cockpit for the valves in the propellant system for the service module propulsion engine, and are sorting out which malfunction procedure the crew should go through. There was no danger of the engine igniting by itself because of this, but it is desired that the problem be ironed out. Continuing to monitor the Apollo 15 air-ground circuit up and live. Now showing cabin pressure on the command module of 4.2 pounds per square inch. We have no pressure reading yet in the lunar module, but the crew apparently has begun pressurization of the LEM. Distance now 8,774 nautical miles out from Earth. Velocity continuing to decrease, 19,065 feet per second. Three hours, 51 minutes ground elapsed time. Still live. This is Apollo Control.
Apollo 15, Houston.
Houston 15, go ahead.
At 3:55:54, about 40 seconds, non-propulsive vent will be opened on the booster.
Roger, Gordo, understand.